Max. You've had Nick
Yeah.
Aswick from Southern Cross, and also the SPCA. Is it Andrea yesterday? SPCA lady.
Yep. Andrea Midgen.
So I'm in a steam company this week. I appreciate the opportunity.
I would like to start off by giving you props and kudos for turning up to the show with your own Go Rentals top on. Well done. Well done.
Well, you've always got to wear your brand.
Brand.
I have to say that
I get it.
The piece that I have done every day through lockdown is I've gone through my normal routine. I've put my work gear on for the day, and I just find it helps get me in the zone. And so that hasn't changed for me through lockdown, to be honest.
No, people kind of joke around because obviously we're just black all the time. It's fine. But when I get home, I swap out of a black V-neck into just a regular black T-shirt, and then mentally I'm out of my uniform.
Nice.
It's the details. All right, so let's get into it. You've run the business almost 20 years now, almost, eh?
Yeah, I've been with Go for 20 years, and I mean, Go was very, very small when I started, but so been involved for a long time and watched the business grow, exponentially over many, many years. So it's been a wonderful journey. So, but obviously the recent issues have certainly kicked up some changes, and very, very interesting moving into an environment where revenue falls completely off a cliff, right? So. You need to pedal fast and pedal hard, and so we made a bunch of quick decisions early and got on with essentially downsizing.
Now, the pre-COVID, how big was the company? How big had it sort of grown to? Before.
So Go was, I think, pretty much the largest independent operator in New Zealand. So with a fleet of about 3,000 vehicles, and we have. Staff, our summer peak's about 180 now. Our winter number's normally about 150 people. So, and key locations in New Zealand. So that's a reasonable sized operator in the New Zealand market.
Yeah.
And that's obviously changing with what's ahead of us, but all part of it.
I get it. When going back, a month and a bit now, you got Jacinda makes the announcement. I think it was Monday at 1:40, and then all of a sudden the world changed within 48 hours. What was the timing in your headspace coming up of realizing what might happen and how you'd have to navigate or change the business? Like, just talk me through the headspace of what you felt was coming and just navigating that first couple of days, because it was just chaos, man. Like, everyone just lost their shit, and like just talk me through that. It's only probably not too long ago now, but yeah, take me through there for a sec.
Yeah, so really interesting. So I guess for us, we saw the dark cloud looming. So it was on the radar, but we didn't expect things to move just as quick as they did. But certainly, at a senior team level, we started having the conversations and getting ourselves well organized and being in a position where we can sort of enact a bit of a BCP and work through things. But we didn't necessarily expect it to play out as quick as it did. So, and the whole thing was just like a blur. I mean, it just went so fast. Day by day, you were just pedaling hard and gearing yourself up for making decisions. But I mean, all these things are a challenge. But when you've got an incredible team of really dedicated people around you that know the business and know what they're doing, know their game, it makes such a difference. And my team were just sensational. They pulled together as a unit, and they just got on with it and got it done. And that, for me, that makes all the difference, to be honest. Makes my job a breeze, really.
Yeah, even though it's tough when you've got that good comms. We had Tim Malp on the show and a few other people, and just you were saying the camaraderie between those staff that were, some of them that were even leaving the business, they were ringing him up and saying, mate, like, how are you doing? And it's like, dude, I let you go. I should be ringing you. Just that it feels like the bonds of this thing just really kind of commercially screwed people, but kind of in some other weird ways just created a different type of glue and tribalism between the real relationships that these employees and employers had, right?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Tim's interview, and certainly the Juicy guys have built a great culture and they've got a great crew, and we've done a very, very similar thing at Go. So, we've gone through some cuts already, and I made the decision, robett, to call all of my staff that we'd had to let go, and I made the decision to call them all individually. And I did that over a weekend a few weeks ago, and I was really dreading it, to be honest, but it was just something I wanted to do, and not so much to apologize, but just to sort of clear the air, let them know it was me that had to make the tough decisions, and just thank them for all their efforts, and just the response that I got from our people was just I was blown away, to be honest. And people just really dedicated and just, thank you. I can't believe you're even calling us individually. And, can we come back in the future? And are you okay? And a really similar sentiment. So, quite a humbling experience. And I don't think I had any really terse conversations. A couple of people had some curly questions for me, but it was a really humbling experience, to be honest, to go through that. And it just made me realize what a wonderful bunch of people that we've got, and what an engaged team that we built over such a long time. That's helped go win tourism awards and do other things. So, a really humbling experience.
It validates the good culture that you built when people care that much and they genuinely give a shit. It's pretty awesome to see, and I'm sure it'll be super super humbling and probably unexpected from both sides. So when it goes to zero essentially, but buddy of mine, he had a 97% revenue drop, and then he's just like, holy shit, what now? What? When you got to the now what thing, how did you mentally sort of approach what could be when you start to redesign and reimagine what happens next? Like, how did you go through that sort of process?
Well, great questions. I mean, for us, the three focuses were sort of people, plant, and property, and work through those things. And then beyond that, there's a bunch of other expenses in our business that are essentially variable to revenue and activity. So, downsizing has definitely been hard, and the real challenge is that fixed cost base. Once we've got through the worst of that process, and we're still fine tuning there, of course, and we're still optimizing. But once we got through the worst of that process, you then set your mind to what comes out the other side. And I think, Robett, the hardest thing for us has been, what does that return to revenue profile look like? And where do you go for your source of truth, your information, and how do you start to predict what it looks like when domestic comes back on board? When are we going to get Australia? And so on and so forth. So for us, to be honest, the biggest challenge has been understanding that. And I've kept really well connected into the lots of great people in the industry that I respect and trust, and I've been able to chew the fat with them and get a genuine sort of lowdown perspective from people that understand what's going on, which is fantastic. And then really start to try and build what you think that's going to look like. But at the beginning, you want to be so conservative on that. We're now starting to see some reasonable activity. The last 3 days, we've had a decent number of bookings coming in the door. Nowhere near previous levels, but there's starting to be some light at the end of the tunnel. And then I think the really exciting thing, when you park all those core pieces, the really exciting thing is then, okay, so what does the go of the future look like? How do we, when we reset, we redesign, we reimagine, whatever you want to call it, when we reset this business? So for us, we spent many, many years developing great technology, and we've had an end-to-end rental experience on an app for quite some time now. And this has been the catalyst and the opportunity now to make that mainstream in the business. So every single transaction going forward at Go will almost be contactless car rental. And every single transaction will be done with the app. And we won't use our traditional people at desks, self-check-in kiosks, whatever those things might be. We're essentially going to be fully mobilizing our entire operation. And that for me is massively exciting. It's almost, I don't want to plug Air New Zealand too much, but it's almost Air New Zealandizing the model and the opportunity. So that for me is the exciting stuff, and how we set ourselves up for the future to deliver for our clients, and also for changing consumer needs.
Well, I think the bit there, we had Clive Omerod, who's the CEO of Les Mills, on the show, and he was saying, he didn't, their strategy didn't change; it just got accelerated dramatically. Yeah. So for yourself, if you're already talking about, app-driven purchasing, contactless transactions, all these different bits and pieces, the speed of this has probably just amplified it up. So when you go to I don't know that you'd probably know the numbers. What percentage usually would be domestic bookings with Go?
Our business? About 30%. About 35%. About 35%.
Yeah, got you. And then how closely tied in are you with different other like activity crew, like the tourism sector itself? What type of comms have you been in at these different parts with them, figuring out what potentially could be happening at the different bits and pieces? Like how's the comms been? Because obviously you will have a strategy of like, when the bubble happens, we could do this. When this happens, we could do that. How has the comms at an exec level sort of been within the tourism, all the different players that you would usually partner with strategically?
Yeah, I think they've been solid. I mean, TNZ, TIA taking their leadership positions as you'd expect, and it's always good to have a chat with Chris Roberts and others who've got a great view and a genuine solid grip of what's going on in the industry. So, and also Tech NZ at Tourism Export Council, I think their communications have been fantastic and providing great summaries. So there's definitely lots of really, really good information out there. And it's really good to link in with all those things. But you've also got to distill that down and apply that to your own business and your own sector. And every single business is a little bit different, right? So, and some of us are definitely reliant on international, and some of us are solely reliant on international, and the rest of us have got the domestic mix. And certainly for us, the Trans-Tasman bubble thing is really, really a key. And, that should put us back in a place where we can start to return to, I wouldn't say normal levels, but return to some sort of reasonable volume and standard. So that Trans-Tasman bubble thing is absolutely key. And it's interesting trying to get the view of the timelines of that. And at the moment, there are people that are prepared to take a punt on that and others that aren't. But I know the airports and the industry will be working very, very hard to get that open for us all. So that to me feels a really key milestone that we all need to work towards and support.
Yeah, it's just such a monumental thing when you start from zero to sort of roll back around again. So when you've so for your business, how have you thought to reset it? So contactless payments, end to end through the app. Like, what other things have you sort of thought about? Have you thought about, like, what other sort of business models or ideas have been sort of thrown around the team with what you can do with either existing potential like resources or staffing or place, like, talk about the police plant, all the rest of it. Like, what are some of the ideas that have been thrown around with how to sort of reset and reinvent the business?
Yeah, so you've got to look across your assets and think about how you can, a generate some more revenue from specific areas, or b, how do you reduce some costs? A couple of examples: a pretty sizable head office building that probably is bigger than we need. So how can we, utilize that space to generate some revenue, whether that be bringing in a tenant or creating some shared workspace or whatever that might be. So that could be an opportunity. Beyond that, Go's got a couple of state-of-the-art tunnel car washes at our Auckland and Christchurch operations, and so there could easily be an opportunity to do some outsourced vehicle grooming services and so on and so forth. So there's a few opportunities there that you've got to think about, but also you can't take your eye off the prize. And we certainly want to make sure we're playing strong with our domestic market. We've got a good customer following, and there's probably going to be opportunities also to pick up some business in other areas where you might have other organizations looking to downsize their cost base, and so there could be an opportunity there to win some business and win some contracts. So I think you've still got to keep your eye on the prize. If you spend too much time looking left and right, it's a balance, isn't it? You can't put all your resources and energy into what you need to do in the short term to keep yourself alive. You've got to keep some of your core business rolling, if that makes sense.
No, totally. So the bunch of feedbacks come around about this budget, right? Tourism's a huge part, events are a huge part. People are just going off on social and watching a bunch of this. How does this budget of the 50 mil of the spending 20 or whatever it is, or 30, how does this affect you directly? And what's the feedback been amongst your circles around the lack thereof, or just the not backing, or just whatever? Like, what's your thoughts on how this whole budget sort of played out and what it means for the tourism sector?
Yeah, so budget obviously released yesterday. I was across a bunch of communications in the social space and comments from various people. So starting to pick up a little bit of an overall sentiment from the industry, and I think it feels like the sentiment is that what's been offered is a wee bit weak. I think the comparison that seems to be out there quite a bit is the racing industry. They got 72 million for a 1.9 billion dollar industry, and tourism has been given 400 million to support what has been a 40 billion dollar industry, number one employer in New Zealand, and so on and so forth. So, but I also think that there is a balance here, and that this is a long game, right? So it's not all about dropping a load of cash in the market immediately, if that makes sense. It's a long, slow road to recovery, and no doubt, there's going to be some other opportunities for support. One would hope further down the track. Certainly for us, the extension to the wage subsidy, well, that's going to be a help, and that that's another step in the right direction, and we will have no issue proving the 50% decline in revenue. That's a positive. I'm not going to have to work too hard to sell that concept, if that makes sense. So that's certainly a step in the right direction. And then the overall packages, I do wonder a little bit with the $400 million package, and a sort of big part of that seems to be tailored around business advice. And yeah, I just hope they get that right. And it's not,
what was that? Sorry, what they do?
Well, a big part of the 400 million is essentially a tailored advice type system for, I can't remember exactly what they call it, and I probably should review that very quickly. But I just think they need to get that right. And but I do think that the commitment to preserve some of the key tourism assets is a good one, because the world will bounce back from this over time. International travel will start again, and as sure as eggs is breakfast, New Zealand will continue to be at the top of everybody's wish list. It always has been, always will be. It's a wonderful country full of wonderful people, and many people in the world still want to get here. So, and I also think the way that COVID has been handling the numbers and the popularity of Jacinda's efforts around the world will do wonders for brand New Zealand. So we might find, being a bit more optimistic, maybe we might find that New Zealand is even higher up the wish list, and it's a favoured destination for people in the future. With its clean green reputation, but also with the way it's handled the COVID-19 crisis. So, but listen, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. The borders are probably a long way from reopening, so I'm talking all down the track. But I'm trying to stay optimistic about this thing.
No, you got it.
I have to. It's my natural mindset.
Yeah, it's exactly what we were saying before. I'd rather have people bitching about business than bitching about body counts. So I'll take those tougher conversations financially any day, instead of some of the stuff that you've seen, and the devastation from a medical and community perspective. So if you were to look at, say, the budget or whatever it is, like, what would you have done differently? Would you have set dollars aside to go and buy a bunch of distressed assets to help support them, to keep them rolling? Do you think there'll be government support for this? Like, what would you have liked to have seen in a dream scenario for, obviously, if don't worry about any other sector, any other bullshit, like just for tourism, like what would you have liked to see have done differently?
Yeah, I genuinely do think that the fixed cost base is the major challenge for all businesses. So, and we can all fine tune people and what they're paid and all those things, and you can get some variability into that. But so I really do think some guidance and some rules of engagement for how landlords and tenants are to work together through this period. I think that would have been incredibly helpful. I know for us that is a major part of my fixed cost base that I've essentially not been able to shift a great deal, let's say. So I think that's one area that could have had some attention, and it didn't necessarily, it would have needed the support of banks, but it didn't necessarily need a huge amount of cash injection, but it needed some leadership, some thinking, and some laying out of rules of engagement, as it were. I think that would have been really, really helpful. I know in Australia they sort of they mandated how that was to happen, and I think that would have been incredibly helpful. Certainly, the assistance to keep people in businesses is really, really good. But I also think the reality is, for a lot of us, we know that when we come. Well, we're starting to come back out already, but we know that our workforce in the past, when it was this big, this big, it's not, right now it's going to be this big, and, keeping people alive where you haven't got work for them in the future, those things are a real challenge. And how do you get the balance of that right? So I think that, I don't know what the golden ticket is there, to be honest, but I think that's it is tricky. It's a balance. It's not. And it's not one size fits all. There's all sorts of different things for different organizations. So I also think, there's also lots of talk about sort of reimagining tourism, and I'm slightly shifting away from the budget discussion now, but there's lots of that talk about sort of reimagining tourism, and what do we need to do to build a greater industry and a greater economy for that tourism industry moving forward. So, we certainly can cast our mind to that, and how do we better integrate with our communities and better integrate with our culture. And I actually think on a world basis, New Zealand does that incredibly well. but there's still some maybe some improvements to be made. So, you know, for all of us, we have a duty to brand New Zealand, right? And we have a duty to keep New Zealand's reputation on a global scale as strong as it is. And so everybody in the game has a genuine duty towards that, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as part of the recovery. So, but at the same time, we've all got a lot on our hands trying to keep our businesses alive and get through it and get out the other side. So you've got to balance all those things. But for me, that's we're all custodians of brand New Zealand, and I think it's imperative that we all continue to remember that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's tough when you're trying to please everyone. You can't, right? I've got a friend who's down in Queenstown at the moment. He's staying at the Hilton, and I was on the call with him before. I was like, "Oh, what's the vibe like, bro?" And he was like, "Dude, this is flipping weird, bro. There's like hardly anyone here. They don't have all the full services out. They don't have the full thing. So it's this weird mix of they've got empathy because they realize they're at 0, but then simultaneously they're in a 5-star thing without the 5-star thing. So then it becomes like, how do you just that whole, I mean, it's obviously first world problem shit, but just point out that thing, it's literally restarting from scratch again. Now, one of the things I've been thinking about is there's, the first, it shuts, we go into lockdown, a bunch of businesses cease. We come back out of it, go back into it, but in a lot of different businesses, they're going to have 70, 80% less people walking through the door, whether it be restaurants or retail or whatever these other different businesses are. Those then businesses still aren't going to survive. So there's going to be another drop off the cliff because people won't be spending and moving, whatever else. And I wanted to make sure with a couple of my friends that were working in these different businesses, I was like, don't be naive to the realities of what's going to happen commercially. There's probably going to be a restructure happen in about 2 or 3 months after the wage subsidies and all that cruise out. It's not going to be anyone's fault, but I've been thinking about, say, within tourism, and I know in a couple of other industries, there's been talks of this. Do you think there's going to be a mass, a bunch of different roll-ups and M&A activity between a bunch of different potential strategic partners of either, hotels and, transportation and this and that? Like, do you think that the New Zealand tourism industry will see a roll-up and a bunch of M&A activity in this next 12 months to try and work together to get through it?
Yeah, I think it's likely. And the really sad thing about all this is that there are lots of fantastic tourism businesses and fantastic products and fantastic people that aren't going to get through this and out the other side. And for me, that's incredibly sad because it is a wonderful industry. Genuinely, as you can see, I'm a little bit emotional about it, but. Yeah, I think there probably is going to be some of that activity, and one of the things that I've been casting my mind to is what does the transport sector of the future look like? What does the genuine tourism product of the future look like? And how do all the hotels exist? And how does that change? So I mean, globally, there's going to be some big changes, and I think this is a genuine reset of the travel and tourism game worldwide. So there will be people taking the opportunity to roll up some businesses, I'm sure. Let's hope that those are all done with the best intentions in mind, and we get a good result from it.
Oh, I lost you for like 20 seconds.
That's okay. I kept talking.
No, you're right. We're talking about roll-ups.
Yeah, I just said that I thought there would be a bunch of that activity, but I just hope that was done with the best intentions in mind. And and like I said, I hope as many of our iconic and fantastic tourism businesses and people that are involved in our industry here in New Zealand can get through and get out the other side. And that's the bit that matters most to me. It's a great industry, and I genuinely hope many of the guys can get through and out the other side. I really do.
It's the good a feeling for all other New Zealanders to help back them, and it feels like there's this hyper local resiliency / support / drive to really back the local like I've never seen before, and it's so it gets me stoked because they want to really drive and support those that have the care and those actual true relationships. So in many ways it makes me even more Makes me stoked to see, the health of the people and then the care for each other, because obviously I've kind of seen this in three waves of, you still got the health thing to try and knock off, boom, not that we've ticked the box, but that's we're winning that battle. Then there's this financial shit show we're trying to navigate through commercially, and then there's going to be this community element around the mental health, the relationships won and lost, all the pain and the heartache from so many of those things. And the thing that I think about is the long tail of that third wave is actually more potentially dangerous for New Zealand than the first two.
But, absolutely, particularly for people that lose their livelihood, right? So, lose your livelihood, lose your earnings, potentially lose your house. And yes, there's lots of opportunities available with banks and funders to take a bit of pressure off, but they're not going to be there for the next 2 and 3 years, are they? So how do we get these people back into work, and how do we get the recovery? So and then hey, you're right. The tail of that is particularly scary. It genuinely is. You're right.
I do think it's good though that the nation feels pretty unified as one with the care for each other, plus to try and get out. And I think when they chuck on the flipping news and they're looking at all the shit show that's happening everywhere else around the world, every day they're like, holy shit, I am so glad we're here. I'm so proud that I'm a New Zealander. I'm so happy that we're safe. I'm so, I think that's gonna just that glue to the and for
I'm just losing you now, unfortunately. So I'm pretty sure that's your end, not my end. It's a good expression too. You've got beautiful.
Yo, oh mate, we keep kirking it. Are you in Invercargill? What are you doing?
Is that my connection or yours?
I don't know. I'm on like, blame me. I'll blame me.
I'm on fiber ultra fast. It's the connection between Auckland and San Francisco that's causing the problem.
When I think what I clearly need to do is only get some type of really beefy telco sponsorship for the show. Just some beefy 4K multi-stream.
You were just talking about New Zealanders and the support to each other, and I put in a little post myself on LinkedIn the other day, and I made the point that it's times like these when the true spirit of New Zealanders comes out to play. And certainly for me, as you can tell, I'm not a Kiwi originally. I'm a Brit originally, and I've made this place my home over the last 20 years, and I'm incredibly proud these days to almost call myself a Kiwi. I'm finally getting to a point where I can nearly call myself a Kiwi, if that makes sense. But I'm incredibly proud, and it's fantastic to see the support from all angles for each other to get through it. It epitomizes the New Zealanders and the New Zealand people, and I think the country should be very, very proud of that. It's fantastic.
Totally agree. Before we go, I want to ask you, what are you most excited about or most hopeful about for this next 6 months between now and Christmas? When you look at your calendar and you see the challenges that you got ahead, what are you just like, let's flip and go? Like, what's the thing you're like, shit, yeah, giddy up?
Yeah, it's really on the tech side. So, I talked before about the moving the entire sort of car rental transaction for us onto the app, and we've spent the last 2 years trying to work out how to shift everybody from the traditional to the and we've been doing sort of 15 and 20% of our business on that medium, right? So that I'm massively excited about that. And we've maybe ahead of a few of the other guys in the market, in that we built and developed our own technology for this. So for me, I'm really, really excited about the opportunity to really crank our technology forward and use that to springboard into the future and hopefully remove queuing from queuing, the bane of everybody's existence in car rental, right? So how do we not queue for a car? That's you see the desks in the airports and lines of people. How do we get away from that? How do we solve that problem? How do we bring car rental into the 21st century? So for me, I'm massively excited about that opportunity, and I think we're in a great position to nail it.
Well, it goes down the path of my head just went to, well, clearly if you own the IP and if you've got all these assets, you can use yourself as its case study to then create a white label SaaS play for every other single rental company around the world. That's a tech export. Oh my gosh.
We should talk. We should genuinely talk. I hope that's not me frozen again. Robett, you there? Oh no, lost you. Completely lost you.
How are we stuffing this? How are we stuffing this?
Don't know.
I think you're about to give me a percentage of this new JV white label SaaS Play rollout globally that you're going to plug into after you get New Zealand tech as an export waitlist, because you don't need to leverage the 3,000 cars you've got, but potentially the millions that are around the world. But anyway, that sounds like another chat we could have.
I think we definitely should be having that chat, and I'd love to lean on your experience, because I do have something up my sleeve in that space.
I figured that you would. We can take this chat offline. Mate, this has been a great banter, dude. It has been cool to see different leaders throughout this, because I've been fortunate enough to interview a whole bunch of the headspace of positivity, even through shit, of just like we can, because they can see the long tail and the long game of how this plays out. So kudos and props to you, especially even just 20 years in the game of doing what you've been doing is one thing. You're obviously extremely passionate about the people and the community and the culture of this whole thing, but there's opportunity here that's sitting in, and the good thing is Kiwis are wanting you to win. Kiwis are backing you to win, and they're backing each other, and that makes me feel cooler than just later bolt, peace, next, like Kiwi, you know what I mean?
Support local, go local. That's our taglines at the moment. Support local, go local. And I think that New Zealand will rally around each other to do this, and also let's be honest, Kiwis have got an amazing backyard, and in general, I think we spend a lot more time and money and energy seeing other parts of the world and not exploring our own backyards. So hashtag back your own backyard right now. That's it's a wonderful, wonderful country, and it continues to amaze me the number of people in the North Island that I meet that have never been to the South Island. I'm like, really? Like, how does that happen? I mean,
yeah, I get it. Go local, it's a thing.
So this is an opportunity for Kiwis to really get intimate with their own backyard. Frozen again. Don't believe it. Okay, let's cut. Oh no. Frozen again.
Mate, it's my fault. It's an opportunity for awesomeness. I'll let you finish. You go for it. Close us out, mate. The flipping tech.
Hey, well, let's talk. Generally, thank you for the opportunity. Great to be on the show, and keep up the great work. I mean, this platform that you're providing is giving us lots of us some good insight into some great leaders. So I'm certainly enjoying checking in on when I get a chance. And so kudos back to you for your efforts, Robett. We all really appreciate it. It's great.
Appreciate it, mate. I've survived through whiskey and stubbornness and determination. And no, what it has been is like, because people have, I've almost done 100 of these through this, is I realized that I had a role to play, a very small role. And the role was, I know lots of really smart people that can talk about stuff that other people don't get access to. So what a great way to actually humanize more of them from a people. Oh. So that's oh, I lost you. Where you go? All right, well, dude, thanks so much, man. And I'm gonna send you a message about the other thing, because I've got some ideas.
Awesome, good stuff. Go well.
Love your work, brother. Talk soon. Go well. See what we did there? Go Rentals, go well. James Dalglish, Managing Director for Go Rentals in New Zealand. Pretty awesome, pretty cool. And love seeing the positivity of even though it's a shit situation, with how they're going to come out of this, and even just like right at the end there, thinking about what can they take, because there's this tech player that's global, it's weightless, it's there's something in there too. So mega cool and awesome. Sorry for the tech issues, delays. If there's a telco that's watching, if there is a certain telco which is watching this right now that would potentially like to help with the internet connections, that could be great. There might be a conversation we could have. But I shall see you all soon, team. Enjoy the rest of the day. Peace.